G'day guys, how are we? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, October 31st, 2022. And as always, great to have you along for another episode or another show, whatever you want to call it. I'd like to shout out to everyone that's been watching so far. I know you've got a lot of choices out there for social media and everything else to do, let alone watching TV on a Monday night. So I appreciate all you guys that come on. If you haven't been here before, welcome. This is where we talk all the latest news from around Australia and the world, and also go through a few different points that I might like to bring up. Just some topics, so it's really good to have your feedback. We have got the ability in the comment section there to put a comment or question that you would like answered or discussed, and we'll go through it. And there's also the ability to actually come on the show if you like. So I'm going to put the link up in a second. So if you would like to come on, I'm going to do that right now if I can find it. Put it in there. So if you actually do want to come on and have a chat, feel free, no pressure. I'll just continue on with the agenda of the show, and it would be great to have some of you come on and discuss things more, more intimately, I suppose. But if not, feel free to put the question or comment in there, and let's get the show on the road. So tonight, as I said, apart from the usual Australian and world news from the weekend, there's very big going on, good and bad. A couple of things I want to go over tonight, and one is the top 10 Aussie performances of all time. So the best performances ever by Australian boxers in fights over the years. We're going to go through that. And as always, I'm a glutton for punishment after last week. There will be a little bit of debate back and forth, and that's cool. I'm happy with that. So we'll do that. And also something I'm pretty keen to go over as well. This is I really need your input with. Is boxing just simply destroying itself? Are we our own worst enemy? The boxing world. Because at the moment, I've got to say I'm a little bit disillusioned with the sport. I obviously still love it. I love everything about it. But I'm just a little bit concerned about where the sport is currently sitting and the participants that are in the industry, where they're actually driving this thing. Because at the moment, I just feel like we're off-road somewhere, and we need to get back onto the highway quick, or else we're going to be left behind. It's as simple as that. And the sport that we all know and love might not be the same in 10, 20, 30 years time. I don't know. But anyway, I want to go over that, get your obviously opinion. Now with the actual that point too, I will actually go over it probably a little bit more. Well, I will raise it on Thursday night on the deep dive show. I just wanted to go over it more tonight, have a little bit more time to discuss, debate, whatever you want to do, and delve into a little bit deeper without sort of the time constraints that goes with our Thursday show, because we have so much to go over, and obviously there's a lot of opinions in there as well. So I just want to have the ability to go through it tonight in full. So we'll go through the news from the weekend. Unfortunately for Aussie boxing, Jason Waitley was beaten. He lost a 12-round decision to Matus Masternak. The decisions were, or the scores were, 119, 108, 117, 110, 118, 109. So, look, I didn't watch the fight in full. I sort of skipped over a bit, saw some highlights. Look, at the end of the day, I think I said it last week. I for one, probably haven't been one of, I won't say a supporter, because I support every Aussie boxer or any boxer, but probably not someone that was as optimistic about his chances on the world scene as some others out there. No disrespect to Jason. I've met him quite a few times. He's a lovely guy, and he put it all on the line to go over to Poland, so all the best to him. But I think it showed on the weekend that maybe he's maybe at this stage not quite up to the level. I was sort of worried for him if he did get the Jaya Pattaya fight, because Jaya Pattaya is simply a cut above not only Jason but everyone in the world as far as I'm concerned. So it didn't surprise me that he got beaten, but again, full respect to him and anyone that leaves the comfort of their shores and goes over to their opposition's backyard and has a crack. So good luck to him. Hopefully now he's still, I was going to say he's young enough, he's probably not. I think he's 31, so he's not a lot of time, but at least he's not going to die wondering about where he is in the scheme of things. So it's one thing to be back here, and I know we've talked about it on this show a few times with some of the boxers in Australia that are continually fed the opponents that make them look good, get the right rankings, and obviously get the social media and all the views and all that sort of stuff. And then they obviously come up against the best and the found wanting. I really admire Jason because he put it all on the line and went over there. So he's not going to die wondering. It's as simple as that. So good luck to him with whatever happens next. I, for one, don't think Masternak stands a chance either against Joe Pataia. I think he absolutely picks Masternak apart from what I saw. Got a couple of comments there. Yeah, keep the comments coming there, guys. Shane, yes, I don't think we're embarrassing the casual fans enough. While we're on a high, we could be converting a lot more to regular ticket and pay-per-view buys. Well, I'm looking forward to a little bit more comments from you, Shane, because when I go through it, I want your opinions. And there's Andy there. Hello, fans. Yep, not sure there's a lot out there watching at the moment, but all those that are, welcome again. And put those comments in the section. Oh, there we go. My Aussie channel. Really appreciate that, mate. Now, Boxing IQ Tawa Aussie, I think it is. So, great to have you on board, mate. And I will tell Noonan Boy when he's on, hopefully, it won't be this week because he's on holidays at the moment, maybe the week after, that you've been tuning in. So, I really appreciate it, mate. I think you were from Tampa Bay, is that right? From memory last week. But wherever you're from around Australia and the world, welcome again. So, just getting back to the Jason Waitley fight. Look, he didn't do a hell of a lot wrong. He went over there. The one thing I didn't like right from the word go is that Masternak actually backed him up. And Jason, for me, is not the type of fighter that should be on the back foot. He's more effective coming forward. And I thought as soon as Masternak put him on the back foot and made him back up, I just thought he might have been in trouble. And I'm not quite sure why he kept going to his right. Sort of negated himself a little bit. I would have liked to have seen him go left. But look, I don't think it would have made much difference. But as I said, the scores 119, 108, 118, 109, 117, 110. So well done to Jason. As I said, I'm not quite sure where he goes from here. There might be some other fights for him. He's still with Tasman Fighters, of course, so there might be some others. But I know the big thing was to have him fight Joe Pataia. And who knows, look, it might still happen at some stage. But from what I saw on the weekend, I think that'd be pretty much target practice for Jai, I would think. So we'll see. And look, it looks like Masternak will get the first shot anyway. Well, he will. He's a mandatory now. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there. But as I said, from what I saw, Jai's got nothing to worry there. And if anything, he should be using Masternak as a bit of a tune-up to some bigger fights. So we'll see what happens. The other thing I saw on the weekend, Liam Wilson has been added to the Zoo Charlo card, which is pretty cool. Obviously, Sam Goodman's already on the card, so that's great. Yeah, so he's going to be fighting Archie Sharp, the Brit, who's the WBO #1, which means if Liam wins the fight, then he obviously goes to #1, and all of a sudden we've got someone else that's in line to fight for a world title. So how exciting is it? And I've got a feeling if Sam Goodman wins over there as well, he's going to be up the rankings with a bullet as well. So 2023 is going to be just absolutely massive. What have we got there? Florida, Tampa Bay. Yep, where the hell is the boy? Looks like Tahiti. Yeah, I think it is, mate. I think he's, no, he's in Bali. I think he is. Some island in Bali. He actually messaged me today when he saw what I was going to cover on the show. So he just sent me a little bit of support and said, get into him. Don't like to get into it too much because there's always people who are upset, of course. But, hey, we're going to go through it all tonight. And as I said, I really want your points of view, whether it's Boxing IQ from Tawasi or Shane or Andy, whoever it might be. So don't be shy. Put the comments in there and let's talk some boxing. Yep, let's go Liam Wilson for sure, mate. So look, really looking forward to it because the guy over there, last time I was there to see an Aussie fight was in 2018. Jeff Horn fought Terence Crawford at the MGM. Look, it was great. I never thought I would actually see or get to see an Aussie fight, a main event at the MGM ground. I know years ago, obviously Costa did it, Robbie Peden did it. I never thought I'd get the opportunity, but to see Jeff Horn there. But on the undercard, it was just a standard old whack together undercard on there. I can't remember who was on there, but it was nothing, out there, I suppose. But to be able to go this time, not only see Zoo and Charlo, but to see Sam Goodman and Liam Wilson on the card, can't wait. So best of luck to both boys and all three boys, of course, including Tim. And if you are thinking about getting over there, do it. There's going to be a massive amount of Aussies over there. Looks like I'm going to go probably a little bit earlier than probably some people out there will probably be going themselves. I'm assuming if you guys out there, if you're thinking might be early fight week, I'm probably going to be mid the week before that. So about 10 to 12 days before. I want to get there and cover a little bit if I can. But however, regardless of that, if you are thinking about going, make sure you do it, because when you get there, we're all going to be there around the centre. You get to the MGM Grand where it's going to be. There will be just Aussies and fight fans everywhere. Of course, you can hook up with us. Tassie will be there. I think Noonan Boy still talk, or Nick Noonan is still talking about going over. But regardless, there'll be a shitload of Aussies over there, so it should be a pretty festive atmosphere over there. James, welcome, mate. Great to see so many Aussie boxers in Vegas, January 23. Yeah, of course, mate. So that's what I was just saying. But yeah, it should be awesome. Now, just before we progress, I just wanted to go back over. I just said about the top 10 Aussie performances of all time. It was a little bit of fun over the weekend because, of course, I knew it was going to happen with the top 10 I did last week of the male and female. Of course, we're not going to keep everyone happy. So I got a little bit of feedback from a few people out there, but I think mainly about George being at number 4. But look, as I said last week, it's just an opinion. I totally respect any of you guys out there, however you had it. I got no dramas. We might not agree. We've all got our different ways. I was given an example from BoxRec, the way they rated it. I think it was Aussie Boxing News. I can't remember. He didn't actually say what his name was, but it must be a new channel. Who said that, you know, the BoxRec, here's sort of proof of it's not right. But I think George was still number 1. And look, I'm not going to argue it. I still think Jai Patai is number 1, but Michael Zarafa at number 4, I think, on BoxRec. Now, I don't know what algorithms they're using or what criteria, but to have Michael Zarafa above Jason Maloney and even Andrew Maloney. I think Andrew Maloney might have been at number 10, and I think Liam Wilson might have been in front of him. Now, again, with all due respect to Liam Wilson, but he's not pound for pound better than Andrew Maloney, in my opinion, at this stage. Michael Zarafa is certainly not the number 4 pound for pound, but everyone has their own different ways of looking at things, the way they rank people. Now, do you look at pure ability? Do you go on what they've achieved in the past, maybe what they're going to achieve in the future? That's what some people do. So everyone's got their own ways of looking at it. I look at the now. I don't look at what happened 2-3 years ago or what might happen in the future. And I did use the example of Canelo Alvarez. Was number 1, I think, on most people's lists before he got beaten. But when he got beat, he slipped down to the bottom of the 10. Some people list he actually slipped out. So do you go on just that one loss, or do you go on his body of work? So there's heaps of different things that go into it. I just take a lot of different things and throw it around and then put a little bit of gut feel into it as well. And I just get the feeling that the thing with George Kambosos, and we love George, he's so much respect for him, but at the end of the day, like it or not, he's lost his last 2 fights. And yes, they're against Devin Haney, but he's lost his last 2 fights. You've got to look at in the now. You're looking at purely on what people have achieved, and he should be number 1. Jai Patai actually should be below him, but Jai Patai is a reigning world champion, won the title in his last fight. Tim Tszyu's on the cusp of an undisputed world title shot. Paid his dues, a little bit like George did on the way up. So, you know, George's competition on the way up was very, very well picked. So the people that managed him did the right thing. So it comes down to a lot of different things, but that was my gut feel. I'm pretty sure by the feedback that I got, most people agreed with the top 7 pretty comfortably. There might have been 1 or 2, you know, switching around, but it was, if you didn't see it or you can't remember, it was Jai Patai, Tim Tszyu, Jason Maloney, George Kambosos, Andrew Maloney, Liam Paro, Michael Zarafa at number 7. So I've really put Michael Zarafa to the side. I don't think you can argue with the top 6. And whether you have Jason above or below George, or you have Andy above Jason, I don't know. But either way, I don't think you can really argue with the top 6. But again, I totally respect everyone's point of view. So peace out there, everyone that had a crack. Well, at the end of the day, it's just my opinion, and that's what I stated at the start. And well done, James. Exactly what I said. BoxRec ratings suck. I don't even know where they get the figures from or the system from, but at the end of the day, I don't agree with it. Because again, with all due respect to Michael Zarafa, but he's not the number 4 pound for pound fighter in Australia. It's as simple as that. It's fact. So, Andy, what do we got there, mate? Yeah, so Shane, we're going to get onto this soon, Shane, once I get through a couple of things. Very impressed with Ortiz yesterday. So was I. Very impressed. So was Andy. I didn't catch Loma Ortiz because I was out fishing. Well, good luck to you, mates. Wish the weather was good enough down here to go fishing, but it's not. Not that I go fishing anyway, but Ortiz impressed. Yeah, he did very, very well. Welcome, Rowan, to the broadcast. Boxrec is just based off points, not necessarily legitimate in that perspective. So, exactly. So, my point to the gentleman behind, or female, whatever it was, behind the Aussie, I think it was Aussie Boxing News, is that it's all just points and algorithms and this and that. It's not really based on who they've fought. It's based on if they've beaten another fighter that might have been probably incorrectly, given points for whatever the hell they do. I just think it's ridiculous. I think the best one to still go by is the Ring magazine, if you ask me, on a worldwide scale. And when it comes to the Aussie scene, well, I think Boxing do it. I'm not sure whether Boxing Central do it, but that's mine. Haven't seen anyone do the females yet, so interesting to see whether they start. Andy, can't satisfy everyone, Lyndon. People just got to realise we're all entitled to opinions and people just need to respect differences. Well, mate, you 100%. This is what I was trying to say as well. I don't mind having people say, yeah, that's cool. I don't agree with you, but that's cool. That's your opinion. I don't agree, and here's why. No drama. It's when people say you don't know anything about boxing. Now, they're probably normally the people that have probably followed boxing for 5 or 10 years, and they're head down, ass up into it at the moment. They're all over Facebook and Instagram and they on YouTube, and they've studied the last 10 years or 15 years, and they know boxing. Well, okay, just chill a little bit. As I said, I'm happy to hear people out, but just make sure it's done respectfully and in the right way. Andy, did you catch anything fishing? Shane says. So I'm sure you guys can communicate amongst yourselves. So just on the Lomachenko-Ortiz fight. So Vasily Lomachenko with a 12-round decision over Jermaine Lopez. A very, very impressive Lopez, I will say. The final scorecards were 115, 113, 116, 112, 117, 111 for Lomachenko. Actually, before we go on, I'm going to cover the DNL and Tasman fighter shows when we go through the Boxrec a little bit later on, guys, so watch out for that one. Look, I know a lot of people were saying that Lomachenko wasn't very impressive. Haney eats him if they fight. I understand all that. But you got to remember, it's been a pretty tough year for Lomachenko. Now, I for one agree that he's too small to be a lightweight, but I understand that's where the money is, so good luck to you. Speaking about fishing Shane, got to put the pile in where the big dollars are, and that's what Lomachenko is doing, so good luck to him there, but he is small. I don't know if you saw the interview afterwards where together, Haney looked at least 3 inches taller. Now, I don't know, maybe it was the camera angle or whatever, and he looked about 10 pound heavier. I know he's obviously coming off probably 2 weeks of binge eating, but he looked so much bigger. So I'm a little bit worried about that. Look, Lomachenko wasn't his most impressive performance. I think we're all in agreement with that. But as I said, he's been nearly 12 months since he's had a fight. He's had obviously the dramas in Ukraine. His mind's been all over the place. So, look, it would have been tough to come in. Jermaine Ortiz. Sorry, I think I called him Lopez. Sorry, it's Ortiz. He probably exceeded his Lomachenko's expectations, and probably as some fighters do when they come up against a very, very world-class fighter. They raise the bar themselves to go with them. Lomachenko might have just been treating it like a tune-up fight. So a lot of factors come into play. I will agree, though, that what I saw yesterday, it's going to be very, very tough to beat Devin Haney, but this is Lomachenko we're talking about. Styles make fights, as they say. Will Loma get up? He's had a fight under his belt now. I would say the fight's probably going to be, I'm not quite sure whether there's a date, maybe May or June. I would probably, it might even be a little bit, maybe April, May, I would probably think. So he's got a little bit, this is a guy too that hasn't fought very regularly over the years, by the way. So I think he's only had 18 or 19 fights in 10 years or 12 years, or whatever it might be. So, yes, Andy, he did say that Haney's a heavyweight. He looked in comparison, he looked a hell of a lot like a heavyweight, didn't he? So, what have we got there? Actually, I'll put this comment up. Some snappers, nothing special. Oh, yep, good. That's on the fishing. That's right, Andy. That lack of respect for opinions are one of the things that goes against us in converting and encouraging more fans. Yeah, no, you're right, Shane. And I think it's the day and age. All you got to do is jump on social media these days. And if someone doesn't agree, there's none of this respectful sort of thing anymore, because they know they can hide. They know they can hide behind a fake profile and say what they want. The worst is obviously Twitter out there. I jump on occasionally for a look, but that's just absolutely toxic. Stay off that if you get a chance. It's horrific. And the others aren't too far behind. But anyway, when you put yourself out there like this on a public forum, and you put your list to judge when obviously you've got to obviously be prepared for the feedback, and that's cool. No problem. Happy to have the conversation as long as you keep it respectful, which it was on the weekend with a couple of people. James, Loma excuses he had a rush short prep for this fight. Yeah, well, it could have been. I did sort of read that, James, but I must admit, maybe a slight bit of cop-out, maybe, as he hasn't fought for 12 months, even though he's obviously had the issues in Ukraine, as I said before. Don't know. My thing is, and it happens a lot with these, you know, the A-list fighters, that they come up against a fighter there. There's no secret that it's a tune-up fight. So they treat it as such, maybe not deliberately, but it's always in the back of their head. So it's hard to get up for those guys. We saw it with Triple G against Murata earlier in the year. That obviously did actually transfer into the fight with Canelo, which was disappointing. I thought he might have put up a lot better effort. However, but Lomachenko, I've just got a feeling, yes, he's not the fighter that he used to be. Yes, he's too small to be a lightweight, but it's still Lomachenko, and I still think he gives Haney troubles. Will he beat Haney? My initial opinion is no. I think Haney has the tools to beat Lomachenko, but time will tell. And as I said, styles make fights. Andy, yep, first fight back for Loma. Glad Haney all for Loma fight though. Yeah. Well, a little bit of this I'm going to get into with the point I said before about the boxing is just destroying itself. It was encouraging to have both guys in the ring saying we want to fight each other. Does that guarantee it's going to happen? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It doesn't guarantee shit, unfortunately. So, but the signs are good. But if you remember, Crawford and Spence started out amicably as well, and look what happened there. Garcia and Tank didn't start out amicably, but at least it started out as far as, hey, let's get this fight on. Two fighters wanting it to go, but unfortunately no one else does. I'm going to get into that in a sec. So yeah, what do you guys think? Loma or Haney? Who wins? I think Devin Haney at this stage. I think he's very impressive against George. 23 years of age. He's only going to get better and better and better. So I think he has the tools to beat Lomachenko, as much as we all love Loma. All right, Andy, what have we got there? Yep, this day and age, people can have no filter, and respect seems to go out the window a lot, sadly. Well, it does, mate, because end of the day, as I said, you can just put a tweet or a Facebook post or Instagram post, whatever the hell you want to put out there, whatever, TikTok, whatever. I'm not on TikTok, but you can do it under anonymity, and even if people know who you are, well, you're on, you know, opposite ends of the computer or phone or whatever the hell it is, so you can pretty much say what you want. A lot of brave people out there. I just, you know, long for the days. I'm in my late 40s, so I just remember the days back in the day where you had an issue with someone, you met down the back street after school and you sorted it out this way, and afterwards there was the respect, but at least, you know, you got to back up what you're saying. Anyway, it's a different world we live in, so we'll move on. Jay, welcome to the show, Jay. I think Haney will now see this as an easy title defence. Well, that's going to be a massive mistake if you think that. Payday and one the fans want. I expect locked in very soon. Yeah, well, it should happen. I think, it should be pretty easy. I think Haney still got the one fight with Top Rank, and Lomachenko's obviously with Top Rank. I'm assuming as long as the money's right, it'll happen, no problem. And you can almost see the way the chips were starting to fall. This is the fight that everyone's tailoring for. This is the way it's all going to work out, so let's hope it does. However, as I said before, a lot of other fights out there have seemed to be pretty easy to make, and they still haven't happened. So we'll see. The other fight I saw on the weekend, just speaking of fights that haven't happened or aren't happening, is Crawford and Spence, of course. I don't really want to talk too much about that because at the end of the day, there's nothing to talk about. But I did see that WBC are going to mandate Spence now fight Thurman. Crawford's obviously got his next fight locked in. So, yeah, how do you think that fight goes? Spence or Thurman? Good fight. I think Spence wins, but Thurman's not, you know, apart from the Pacquiao fight, hasn't had a loss, but he's too inactive for me, I think, so I would still back Spence. On the Loma fight, I have Loma and Haney 5 to 10 pound for pound. Too hard to predict. Okay, so you still got Loma in the top 10. Okay, I'm not sure. I'll probably have Haney in the top 10. I'm not sure it'd be number 5, but whether that's both of them between 5 and 10. I might have him at 8 to 10, I'll probably think. Loma, not quite sure after the weekend's performance whether there's a spot in there for him, but I wouldn't argue if he did, mate. This is Lomachenko, an absolute legend. And Ortiz, this is Shane, was banged up for As I say, and Ortiz was bang up for plus. He had a great game plan. Haney gets him now, but Loma 5 years ago, different story. Yeah, I tend to agree, Shane. I think back in the day, 5 years ago, again though, the size difference, it does bring people back to the pack, having to go up in weight. Got to remember, Lomachenko, a super featherweight, super feather. So lightweight's a big jump, especially with someone like Haney who's probably coming down. What is it, 135 lightweight? He probably walks around at 155, if not 160. I'm probably thinking Haney would. Where Loma, you'd probably think it'd only probably walk around at 145. So it's a big weight difference there. So yeah, who knows? Who knows? It's all good in hindsight, of course. Rowan, is it fair? Maybe people underestimated Ortiz. Yeah, it maybe would be fair. It wasn't a bad tune-up fight. Tough guy, just not many people knew him. Haney's a terrible matchup for so many. It's a great matchup. Yeah. He's and I put him in the basket with Shakur Stevenson. Very, very tough guys to fight because they don't really engage too much. They're very, very patient. They will make you come to them. Even if they're coming towards you, they will make you punch first so that they can counter you. And so that's why I don't think Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney is such a great fight, although stranger things have happened. But I do agree, mate. Ortiz, I think he was undefeated going. I think he was 16-0-1 going into it. So he wasn't a slouch, hadn't really fought anyone, but I think two things will probably happen with Ortiz now. He'll get some bigger fights, or people will stay the hell away from him because they know obviously he's got some ability. So, again, the politics of boxing. But look, a good fight for Lomachenko, and I think it'll hold him in good stead for Haney when they do eventually fight. What have we got there? Showbiz. Showbiz, the adult, gave Haney huge props for integrity for wanting to fight Dev. Okay, hang on, bloke. He hasn't beaten Loma yet. Hang on, just trying to go again with that, mate. So Showbiz, hang on, have we got Showbiz, the adult, gave Haney huge props for integrity for wanting to fight Dev. Okay, hang on, bloke. Okay, you're going to have to explain that a bit further, mate, because I'm not really getting that one. Spence beats Thurman, in my honest opinion, says Andy. Still quality, in my opinion, too, despite what people say. Bud was going to sit around waiting, though. Is that shake my head? The SMH, late 40s again. I don't really know the thing. But, yeah, I think Spence. I agree with you, Andy. I think Spence beats Thurman pretty comfortably. Thurman will give him an okay fight, tough fight. Probably go 12 rounds, but I think Spence gets the win there for sure. All right, Jay Brown, here's one. All right, what do we got? Would George have beat Loma on the weekend? I think so. Hey, good question, actually. The George that fought Haney 2 weeks ago, or the George that beat Lopez? Which one are we talking about? I still don't think the George that fought Haney 2 weeks ago would beat Loma, just again because of styles. Oh, look, who knows? Who knows? I still think George still just lacked that belief that he had when he fought Lopez, and even Haney the first time, we had that belief, and then obviously got a boxing lesson, so I think that's sort of taken the sting out of George a little bit. Who knows? No, I still think Loma would have won, to be honest, Jay. Sorry, congrats, Kiko, too. I'm assuming you're talking about, who was it, Castillo? Who was it? Yeah, sorry, Andy, the mind's a bit foggy tonight, so just put his name in there. Kiko, yep. Katie Taylor also won a 10-round decision over Karen Carbajal, 191, 99, 91, 98, 92. Just saw the highlights of this one. It's pretty predictable. Katie Taylor just did enough to win. Pretty standard tune-up fight for the Serrano rematches. Will probably be April or May, I would probably think. So she's just such a legend of Aussie women's boxing. Is Katie Taylor? She's Irish, of course. So good on Katie. Just a real role model for not just women boxers, but boxers in general, about the way how you conduct yourself and how you just get on with it and you build a legacy through your exploits in the ring and not how many Instagrammers you have following you. So, James, what do we got there, mate? Spence doing everything he can to avoid Bud, Boots and Ortiz. Yeah, it's hard to argue, James. I don't know. I wouldn't say, well, I'm not going to argue maybe he's avoiding him. I don't think at that level you really avoid anyone. I think it's more the management that do the avoiding to get them at the right time. But when is the right time to fight these guys? If it's not the right time to fight Terence Crawford, then when is? They're both in the mid-30s. And I said this a few weeks ago. When Hearns fought Leonard the first time, I think one was 20, 23, one was 25 or something like that. And then they fought the rematch when everyone thought they were washed up. They were still younger than Bud and Spence than they are now. This is what's wrong with boxing, so what I'm going to get to in a minute. It's just crazy. All right. Larry Liston, what do you got there, mate? Thanks for tuning in. How much of a chance to give Zurdo Ramirez against Gilberto Ramirez? Yep, against Bivol. I think this could be one of the fights of the year. Yeah, no, I do agree, Larry. This will be a really good one. Look, I'm going to stick with Bivol, but I wouldn't be surprised if Ramirez upsets him. I think, again, styles make fights. I'm a big rap for Ramirez. I think that's going to be a ripper, which I think is this weekend, I think. So, can't wait. So, that'll be a ripper. But I do give him a big chance, Larry, but I still think Bivol gets the job done in a really close decision. That's not about Spence from... Okay. I'm not quite sure what that relates to there, mate, but let me know. Let's not forget you're only as good as your last fight. Yeah, no, Andy, 100% right, because if we're talking about Lomachenko, as good as your last fight and Haney's last fight, then Haney wins that fight pretty comfortably. All right, guys, well, that's... okay, this sort of brings me into the next point. On the weekend, of course, Jake Paul... I'm just going to get rid of that comment there, mate, for a sec. Hang on a sec. Jake Paul. All right, so actually, I'm going to use this as a bit of a segue into my points for tonight. Now, again, if you want to put your comments in the section there or come on, that's up to you. My main point for tonight, before I get into the top 10, is boxing destroying... Hang on, we've got a quick comment there. Spence ain't ducking Bud. Again, that's opinion, mate. I agree with you, mate. I don't think he's ducking Bud. But not to say that his management isn't saying not right now. But if it's not now, then it's never. You may as well forget about it. All right. So my point that I said in the little preview I did for this show today, I did on Instagram, was that is boxing destroying itself? And I think it's a legitimate question. Now I know there'll be a lot of people saying, "What are you talking about? It's probably never been healthier." Well, I tend to disagree. I think at the moment, and a lot of the points we're talking about. Earlier about some of the fights, are they going to happen or not? I just think that boxing is not in a really good place at the moment. And you look at on the weekend, Jake Paul, Anderson Silva was the biggest fight of the weekend. I know what you're going to, oh no, Lomachenko, what? No, it wasn't. Jake Paul was the biggest fight, and that shows me what's wrong with boxing at the moment. He won an 8-round decision. It was a pay-per-view. I don't know what it was like if you're watching from anywhere else in the world. Here in Australia, it was a pay-per-view. Now, it's $40 if you can believe that. I can't believe people would actually pay for it. I'll get to that in a sec there, Andy. Yep. Oh, hang on. Before we move on, I better get this so I don't forget. Who is Cambodia's guy going to fight next? Larry, you said he should fight Jermaine next. Yeah, it could be an option. Might be a little bit risky, I think, for George first up, but you never know. PBC delay, Bud getting great dollars to fight Amazian, plus stays active. These guys may as well do Mandos versus Autism Boots, dangerous, yeah. So I'm going to use that as a bit of an example in a sec. So as I said, you had Jake Paul, Anderson Silva on the weekend as the biggest fight of the weekend. It had massive exposure on social media, massive exposure on YouTube, and all the social media channels are all there. Now, I've seen some highlights of the fight. I didn't really get into it, but when we've got a YouTuber fighting a washed-up 47-year-old MMA fighter in a boxing match that's the biggest fight of the weekend, that just shows we have issue. Now, before you say, well, it's all about the money and it's still a boxing match and this and that, they've got all these followers and it's all about money, well, that's fine. If it is about money, then okay, I'll just shut up. And look, maybe I am old-fashioned, maybe I'm stuck in the 80s and 90s, I don't know. This is when boxing was boxing and the best fought the best. Now, you had this fight here. Now, not just the fight itself. Now, before I even go, I'm not rubbishing Jake Paul here, although I am going to rubbish him in a minute. But as a fighter in general, now, I don't care whether you are a YouTuber or an MMA guy or a guy having his first fight or someone making the 6th defense of their undisputed world championship. I don't care. I have full respect for anyone the jumps in the ring. So this is not aimed at Jake Paul as such as a fighter. Again, full respect. He did the work in training camp. He got in there and got the job done and got paid well. My issue is this whole situation. Now, yep, they made millions of dollars. That's great. They're entertainers. But when that's the biggest fight, when you've got a weekend of other big fights happening, of course, mainly Lomachenko, but others that have happened recently, and it's getting the amount of exposure that it does, there is something wrong in our sport. There seriously is. Now, when this fight's happening, and then on the same hand, we have Crawford and Spence not happening, you have Garcia and Tank Davis not happening, at least at this stage. There is talk that they're getting pretty close, and that's fine. There is so much more talk and roadblocks and issues that are continuing to come into the sport that I just don't recognise it from years ago. I'm going to go through some examples. Now, actually, before I move on, one other thing that I think this has turned the boxing world again into a circus, and I don't like to watch these events. I don't know whether you guys saw it out there. There was the Jake Paul team, Nate Diaz's team, all met in there, and of course there's the obligatory, you know, chest puffed out and water being thrown at each other. What the heck, whatever the hell they were doing. There's a few slaps here and there. It's an absolute circus, and this is getting highlighted. Everyone's getting all excited. It is bullshit. It really is. Now, again, when the biggest news out of the weekend after this fight was, oh, geez, Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz next. What a great fight that's going to be. Again, it's a YouTube. Well, I'm not going to call him a YouTuber anymore. He's had 6 pro fights. But this is a guy who's had 0 amateur fights, 6 pro fights, has yet to fight a boxer. And we're putting up on the pedestal Mauricio Suleiman of the WBC, the president, said full respect to Jake Paul. He's now a legitimate fighter. He's had 6 fights against non-boxers. Non-boxers. Not one of them is a boxer. So how can this guy be getting the pats on the back? As I said, as a just general rule of getting in the ring, full respect. But as far as actually being taken seriously, I'm going to read you a quote in a sec that just absolutely takes the cake. What do we got here? Hang on, I'm just going to a couple of... Oh, yeah. Larry, absolute joke fight. Both guys look like novices. Well, 100%, mate, it was a joke. And the highlights I've seen... I saw the Spider, whatever he's called, Silva, trying to do his thing. It looked every bit a 47 or 48-year-old man, whatever. Jake Paul going, what the hell is this guy doing? Jeez. You know, horrendous skills, okay, for supposedly a top-line boxer. And this is the guy that's getting all the attention over Lomachenko, please. What a joke, 100%. And was it rigged? Well, mate, I 100% think all these fights, in one way or another, are semi-rigged. Is there an actual payment saying you'll go down in round 3? I don't think so. But I do think there is the whole, hey, Anderson or whoever the hell these other boxers that they've brought in, you know the drill, mate. We're going to pay you this amount of money, and, you know, they know. I don't think they've actually got to physically be told that there's a fix-in. But there's the inclination when these guys get called up to fight Jake Paul that they're just the opponent. Do you really think a 48-year-old Anderson Silva's been brought in because he's a legitimate chance of beating Jake Paul? Even though he did quite well, I will say. And that, again, shows the pitfalls of where we're at. But there's the inclination that you've been brought in to be the opponent. Here's a really good payday. Here's some exposure. Here's a retirement fund. You know the drill, mate. That's what happens. As I said, I don't think there's actually the whole you'll go down in whatever round or you'll... But it's the pat on the back, it's the thumbs up. These guys aren't stupid. They're business people. They know exactly what's going on. I thought about this too. This stuff signals the era of a dying sport. Larry, mate, I'm going to keep going with some examples here, and I want your feedback. I'm not sure whether you've watched your show before, but thank you. It's good to have your feedback. I'm not big on celebrity boxing, prefer legit guys. Let's be honest, these celebrities fans are main buyers for those. Now, that's the thing. Again, Andy, that's what's wrong with the sport. This is where we're going wrong. I know they all say, oh, well, the YouTube fans and or the MMA fans are the ones that are buying the views. Well, again, that's what's wrong with the sport. Where are all the fans gone? Actually, I do support them actually buying this shit, by the way. But the problem is, there's no other big fights for them to fork out the money for. And that's another point I'm going to get to in a second. I'm glad that boxing fans aren't paying well, I hope they're not paying for this garbage. and these guys are making the money off the YouTube fans or MMA fans. All I would hope for is Jake Paul would come out, and I know he's not going to, of course, but to come out and tell it the way it is, like Floyd Mayweather's doing. Hey, I'm not pretending these are real fights. Floyd Mayweather said these are exhibition fights, and I'm making lots of money. If you want to watch, pay the money. If you don't, peace. But these are exhibition fights. Making no qualms about what you're seeing. Jake Paul's pretending to be a top-line fighter, which brings me to my point. I'm going to read this out. This is the quote that he said after the fight. And you tell me what drugs this guy's on. All right, this is what he said. All right, quote. You guys said you can't beat a striker. You can't beat a legend like Anderson Silva. I just did it. So why can't I beat Canelo? Unquote. Or end of quote. Are you serious? He beats Anderson Silva, a 48-year-old MMA fighter who should be in retirement, puts on the boxing gloves, and this guy beats him and says he can beat Canelo? Are you kidding me? I won't say what I probably want to say. I'm trying to keep it clean. This is what's wrong with boxing, because people out there are going, oh, yeah, no, he can beat Canelo. Oh, yeah, no, he can beat Canelo. Canelo lost his last fight before the Triple G fight. He can beat him. No, mate, come on. Don't want to get worked up here, but it just pisses me off. This is a add-on effect or a domino effect of the way boxing is perceived, where you've got people out there saying, "Oh, you know, he can beat Canelo, Jake Paul. He can beat." Mind you, there's about a 20-pound weight difference, by the way. I want to fight Floyd Mayweather, he says. The guy walks around at, what, 90 kilos, 95 kilos. Floyd Mayweather walks around at probably 70 kilos. Oh, but yeah, geez, you know, it's a joke. It is a joke. Garbage fake WWE hype who will fight Nate Diaz next, who was there so they could frame them there. And there, as I said before, Larry, there was the obligatory push and shove in the change rooms and things getting thrown at each other and all this shit. Good old Ellie Sackback, what's his name, Sackback's there, getting his vision and putting it up on social media and flaming the fire. What a joke. Come on, have you seen Nate Diaz will get absolutely smashed in boxing. The guy doesn't even know how to hold his hands up. I'm a fan of Nate Diaz, by the way. If you guys know, I went and saw him at the UFC last month or whenever it was in Vegas. I was there, so I went and seen it. Big admirer of him as a fighter, as a warrior, as a boxer. Are you kidding me? Watch him. No defense whatsoever. And he's going to fight Jake Paul next. Jake Paul will probably dock him out as well. And, oh, geez, how great's Jake Paul? I've just beaten Nate Diaz. Oh, my God. This is... Anyway. But, yeah, it is WWE hype. Suleiman compared Jake Paul to Muhammad Ali. What a joke. I didn't see that, mate, but I'm glad I didn't see it. It would have been a foot through the TV or the computer or something. Fair income. I would have lost my phone. I would have chucked it against a brick wall. Real boxing channels should concentrate on real boxing. 100%, mate, but they don't, because they're after followers as well. Are we going to talk about Floyd versus that Deji dude? Shake my head. Yeah, mate, look. I 100% agree. I'm not going to talk about it, I will say. But, again, what I will say, one thing you've got to give to Floyd, he's not out there pretending this is a real fight. He's not trying to talk this other guy up as being legitimate and he's this or he's that. He's saying, hey, the guy's a YouTuber. I'm going to fight him, give you guys a bit of a show. If you just want to watch it, pay the money. If you don't, then no drama. So it's a little bit different to this circus or charade or magic trick, illusion, whatever you want to call it, that Jake Paul's doing at the moment. And you know what? The only fools out there are the dickheads out there that are paying for it. Not Jake Paul. He's a genius. Absolute genius. Because he's a guy, again, he did look better than what he has in the past, mind you, but he's still a very, very, very green novice who he fought anyone remotely resembling a world-class fighter. I think he gets his ass handed to him, but that's not going to happen because he's the money train. I'm not going to put him in there with anyone yet. He's going to fight Nate Diaz. He'll beat him as well. And oh my God, then he's 7-0 and geez. Okay, here we go for Canelo again. But I'm with you, mate. These guys should stop giving it oxygen, but they won't because they need the views as well. Views equal money and followers and everything else, so it's not going to happen. James, talk some sense, mate. Here we go. WBC president bringing sport into disrepute with invention and implementation of WBC franchise world title, effectively 8 world champ division. 100%, mate. Hallelujah. I love the WBC, by the way. They're my favourite organisation. However, this guy is a joke as well, the president. He's bringing the WBC brand down in a massive way by What as a WBC president, why do you need to comment on Jake Paul? Okay, maybe send him a private message and say, yeah, well done, mate, whatever. He's looking at the dollars down the track. He wants, if Jake Paul fights for some ridiculous regional title or whatever the hell they call him over there, franchise fees, sanctioning fees. And the WBC franchise champion again, mate, yeah, it's ridiculous as well. You're 100% right. Absolute bullshit that they bought in. That's only just so they could pretty much let the Golden Boys do whatever the hell they want, not fight mandatories, and just pick and choose how they fight. Anyway, and yeah, and they always hang their hat on, oh, we're doing the clean athlete thing and the women boxing thing and this and that. They put all that aside. Reminds me of like the AFL and the NRL and that in Australia. You know, like in the leagues. They're doing everything, the feel-good stuff and all the warm and fuzzy stuff. Concentrate on the job at hand. You're put in place to run the sport. Run the sport and forget about all the other social justice bullshit. Okay? We're getting a bit sick of it. All for all the good causes, but time and place. Concentrate on the job at hand, and that's running your sport or your organisation. Are you serious, Larry? Geez, what the hell is... I'm assuming that's about the Muhammad Ali comment. Oh, my God. That is just nuts. Jesus. Larry, I'm loving the comments, mate. These fights are taking money out of real boxing. There is coming more and more celeb exhibition garbage fights. Floyd versus Deji. Is that how you pronounce it? Deji? I don't know. Whatever. Conor, Tension, Asukara, etc., etc. Well, you know the next thing that might happen is Conor McGregor comes out and fights Jake Paul. Mind you, he's about 20 pound lighter than him as well. But is it just me, guys, or is it just a little bit of coincidence? And Jake Paul mentioned this himself the other day. Well, you wanted me to fight real fighters. I signed the fight to real fighters and they were cancelled for whatever reason they were cancelled. Do you reckon that's just a little bit of sus sort of stuff going on there? You know, it's just convenience that these real boxers that he's signing the fight aren't actually getting in the ring for whatever reason. I don't know. And Jake Paul can say, well, I tried to fight a real boxer. Wasn't my fault he pulled out. Don't know. There's lots of things going on in the background if you ask me. Rowan, I think the Floyd versus McGregor has hurt the sport. That was the first one, mate. That's what got the ball rolling. It's opened all this up now. You're right, Lyndon. Had mates that watched Jake Paul and didn't even know Lon was fighting. They UFC fans. Exactly, mate. And that's what they're after. And that's what's wrong with the sport. Again, I've got more points to go over. I hope you got all night here, guys, because I'm on a roll, I think, at the moment. But look, at the end of the day, I understand it's a business. They need the cash for these events. Floyd, I've got no problem with. Jake, he's just taking the piss. But not him. It's the fans that are just forking out the money. They must just be behind closed doors. Him and, what's his brother's name, Logan Paul. They just must be pissing themselves. How easy it is to hoodwink the world. We've got all this money. Geez, you know, how easy is it? These dickheads are going to pay for whatever we put up. The only way to stop it, I'm sorry, guys, if you're out there watching, stop bloody paying for it. Stop it. Watch it on YouTube after the fact if you have to. Stop paying for it. Because as long as you're out there paying for the fights, they're going to keep happening and they're going to get worse and worse and worse. Manny Pacquiao's got an exhibition coming up. How long before... Bernard Hopkins, Oscar De La Hoya is a classic one. He's got to come out of retirement, doesn't he, for these exhibitions? Julio Cesar Chavez, I know he's probably done some in the past, but how long is it going to be before these guys are just taking the piss and fighting MMA guys or YouTubers? The only way to stop it is to stop paying for it. And Larry says, yes, Andy, he actually said that in a recent tweet. I'm going to have to look for that. I don't believe you, Larry. I won't believe it till I see it. Not that I don't believe you. I don't believe he could possibly say it, so I'm going to have to look it up. Anyway. And yes, I think we can think of a lot more emojis than that. Yes, Shane, that is very funny. Oh, jeez. It is a circus, isn't it? And we'll say, actually, what is Andy, Jake Paul trying to get mega dollars. Canelo should laugh at him and tell him to fight Mando. Yeah, exactly. You want to? Hey, good point, Andy. Canelo should say, yeah, I'll fight you. Here's my mandatory. Sign and fight him. Let's get it on. You reckon that's going to happen? Absolutely not. Now, but one thing before I quickly move on. While all this is happening, is that not only these YouTubers and all the ex-MMA guys are getting rich and making the sport an absolute mockery, the UFC must be sitting over in the background absolutely pissing themselves laughing as well. Because guess what? They're just going about the business and gathering steam every day. Every show they put on, every single month, It's getting more and more subscribers, more and more pay-per-views and fans and everything. They grow because they run their organisation very, very well. The one thing I will agree with Jake Paul in the situation, their fighters are vastly underpaid compared to boxing. That's the only flaw they have. But the organisation is making money. You know, they've got these UFC centres that they pop up and all these TV shows and you name it. So I'm not a UFC fan at all, but I take my hat off to Dana White and all the crew that run it because they are making boxing look ridiculous. They really are. They're doing this. They're all making money. Yes, they don't get paid enough. That's a separate issue between them and I'm not sure they have a union or whatever the hell they do. But end of the day, that's just the UFC juggernaut that just keep powering on and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And boxing is just getting worse and worse and worse as far as a credibility factor goes. So keep the comments coming here, guys. Canelo would give Jake Paul the brain bleed. Yeah, it would be dangerous. Yep, it might actually be really dangerous to make that fight. A novice versus a highly trained pro athlete. I think it would last one round. You know, I know Jake Paul's got the size, but this is the mentality of someone like Jake Paul, that they view boxing as such that he thinks that he's at a level of Canelo, and so do his hangers-on. This is what happens with all the bullshit that goes on. Floyd Mayweather, again, I did praise him before, but him doing what he did with Logan Paul and taking him the distance and making him look good. Mind you, there was like a 50-pound weight difference, I think. But by doing that, he made it look like anyone can pretty much get in there and do the thing against proper boxers. And Logan Paul had no right to be in the ring with Floyd Mayweather. So that's probably the only slight I have on Floyd. But they must be just laughing at boxing fans. Laughing at us. And boxers themselves. Because they're all ones saying, oh, man, I've got Pacquiao and De La Hoya will be next. And, you know, I don't mind what happened last year or the year before, whatever it was, when Tyson fought Roy Jones. That's a whole different kettle of fish. I would love to see more of that if the boxers are in the condition to actually get in there. I'd love to see some dream matchups of fighters in the past having exhibitions. That's great. But this whole circus that's going on over there, don't know. And as I said, the UFC, the ones that are saying how much of a joke this is and we're just profiting and making all this extra money, getting more and more credibility, while boxing just dies. John Ryder would KO Jake Paul, 100%, mate. No disagreement there. Mauricio needs to get off the angel dust clown. Yes, agree. This dipshit I'm going to ban because he's putting porn on my site so he can piss off. All right, Jay. All right, give me a look here, mate. Take a breath. What do you got? Takes deep breath. I like it. Sadly, I have friends who have never heard of Canelo. Oh, my God. Okay, never heard of him. They are now slowly discovering the lives of Canelo, Loma, Haney, Bud, Spence, etc. Well, as I said before, James, we're our own worst enemy. I'm going to go through a list of fights in a minute that we're going to go over that did take place that shouldn't really in this day, if it was taking place in this day and age, and I'll make some sense of that in a minute as I go back into focus. But why these guys fight once every year or 18 months and negotiate and bullshit around, all the boxing fans are getting disgruntled, all souring on the sport. And as I said before, UFC just saying, thanks very much. Come on over. We've got UFC's big shows every single month to keep the appetite. And I know boxing fans that wouldn't ever have watched UFC in the past and now going, yeah, you know what? They've got some pretty good fights over there. Pretty cool fights. The best fight the best on a monthly basis. And the way they set it up, you guys fight on this show, you both win. The two winners fight on the next show. And if you guys win, well, we've got another fight going on that undercard that will then fight the winner. This is the way they do it. They're always planning probably 2 or 3 shows in advance, probably more. A very, very well-run organisation. Meanwhile, in boxing, we're out here going, oh, geez, I hope he fights him and he fights her, or she fights her, sorry, and he fights him, and the promoters and managers are out there going, yeah, no, we're not going to do it unless we get this, and you got to do this, and 6 to 12 months go past, and we're still waiting. What do we got here, mate? Boxing IQ. This bloke is killing the sport. He picks big names, never discloses the actual contract details, and magically wins. Hell, I wouldn't even sign up for a few million. He will never fight a real boxer. And I agree with you, mate. This is Jake Paul, I'm assuming. 100% agree. Jake Paul is doing the blue chip prospect Floyd blueprint. Cashing on the hate people have for you. Yes, good point. And the trick is to rig everything so he never loses. Not necessarily fixes, but bad opponents. Yeah. Now, look, Floyd Mayweather's had he's not the only one in the past, but he cops it probably the most about when he fights his opponents. I'm not necessarily in that camp. I don't argue that it has happened, but I would argue that all those big guys, even the Canelos and even back in the day, they all fought at the right time. Sugar Ray Leonard fighting Marvin Hagler, for instance, picked the exact right time. Different era, and I'm going to get to that in a sec. But I don't think... Look, Floyd was probably from the era where he became the first real businessman / boxer. Okay, as a boxer, probably businessman first, boxer second, and towards the end. Early in his career is probably a little bit different. That sort of started this, where people went, you know what, if I can be really adept at doing this, and this, I'm going to earn some big dollars. Jake Paul was cashing on that, as you just said then. And Canelo did to some extent, I think, as well. But yeah, look, I'm glad you agree there. I don't think the fix is in, but the opponents that are being picked have absolutely no grey area about where they fall in the scheme of things. And while they come to fight, I don't necessarily think they come to win, is my opinion. So interesting to hear your thoughts. Keep the comments coming there, guys. Got a bit of a backlog there. Promise Jake Paul top 15 if you beat Rahman. Oh my God. After what, 6 fights? Are you kidding me? Again, what's wrong with boxing? You have the sanctioning bodies actually pandering to this shit. Saying, because what obviously happens, the more eyeballs and that on those guys, and Mauricio Silliman talking, he gets more social media time, and it's just it's a domino effect, and it's what's killing our sport. If no VADA testing, likely Jake Paul juiced to the gills anyway. Wouldn't surprise me. Let's move on and stop giving that dude airtime. Yep, I agree. Boxing pay-per-views are at an all-time low. The sport is very quiet, 100%. Again, because the best aren't fighting the best. And if they do, we get one big fight a year. I've made the big time, Andy. The sex bots have found the channel. I've made the big time. There we go. So, anyway. Exactly, no, there is a market and rob the fans. It's going from a serious competitive fight to showcase hype fights without purpose or belts. Yes. Larry... Exactly, they know there is a market. Oh, sorry, it's the same comment. Well, here's some examples here. It's going to get rid of that. All right. At the moment, we've got, as I said before, Garcia and Davis toing and froing. Hopefully that fight gets made. I like the fact Davis has been a little bit quiet, I will say. A little bit quiet in the whole proceedings. Ryan Garcia's, as recently as a couple of days ago, said, we need to get this fight done. I want this fight. I want it. So that's one good thing. At least he's trying to get the fight done. We have the Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua fiasco. I don't think Fury really wanted that fight to happen. I think he wanted people to think that he wanted it to happen. He knew it was never going to happen. These guys weren't going to sign a contract in a couple of weeks. It was never going to happen. I think he just wanted to create, more talk out there about Tyson Fury, maybe setting it up for down the track. I don't know, but he knew that fight was never going to happen. I think he had Chisora in his back pocket right from the word go as a backup, and ruled him out. And all you got to do is look at the reaction of Tyson Fury, which is not a very common thing with Tyson, to get defrosted, confronted with some reporters, to storm off and say end of interview, all the rest of it. Shows that he's got a guilty conscience. He knows what he's doing is absolutely wrong. And there was so many different fighters that he could have fought in the meantime, and he chose not to. So for the first time, I think Tyson Fury's credibility and reputation is being affected, and I think we have to do this as fans. We have to push back so these fights aren't getting made. When you're at that level, unless you're telling it the ways, if you had to come out and say, "Hey, I'm going to fight Chisora as a tune-up, then I'm going to fight Joshua next year," okay, no drama. Don't try and sell the fight as a legitimate fight. Oh, Chisora's got a chance. You know what it's like at heavyweight; they can punch, mate. Tyson, we love you, mate. Stop taking the piss. Stop it. Larry, loving the comments. I agree Ford is an all-time great. Don't think everything was rigged towards him. He did take some easy fights late in his career. I was more referring to the hate part, mate. Yeah, nah, thanks, Larry. No, I do agree with you, mate. Probably what I was getting at is that I don't think you can blame him for the Pacquiao fight. I think that was on both parts, but there might be a reason why he fought maybe De La Hoya when he did, when he fought Cotto when he did. When he fought, a lot of these guys when he did. But then I look at when he fought Ricky Hatton at his peak. You know, before that, he fought a lot of the guys at their peak at lightweight and junior featherweight. I thought, you know, he fought all up-and-comers up till then. Later in his career, you got to remember, he went up to welterweight. Now, he's not a welterweight. He probably should have fought maximum light welter, if not go back to lightweight. But as he got older, like Pacquiao did, they went up to a very, very comfortable position. And Pacquiao, I know everyone loves Manny and, you know, he gets the pats on the back, but to some extent, they would have been picking the right opponents at the right time, like they all do. It's at that stage of your career, you're entitled to probably pick and choose different opponents for different times, in my opinion. So I haven't got a problem with him, mate, but I do understand where you're coming from. Jordan Macquarie, thanks for coming on, mate. I'm assuming that's a H for hello, so hello to you, mate. Big time, baby. Like and subscribe. Yes, I always forget that. All right, so with these fighters that are all talking amongst themselves that we mentioned, Spence as well, let me just go back to some fights in the day. I'm going to go back and start in the 70s. Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, the first fight. They got it done. Could have been lots of toing and froing. Ali, Frazier was a heavyweight champion. Ali coming off the layoff. He'd had a couple of tune-up fights, of course. They got it done because they both wanted to fight each other. They wanted to see who was the best. Frazier didn't care about being the B side. He was the world champion. He didn't care. He didn't mind being on the flip side of everything and have Muhammad Ali up in lights. He just wanted to fight Ali to prove he was best. No, he was the best. Ali, again, wanted to prove that his years out, he was a real champion, wanted to fight the best. So you know what? They got it done. Muhammad Ali, George Foreman. Okay, same thing. George Foreman could have, you know, after beating Frazier, could have taken some mandatories or voluntaries and pissed around for 2 years and waited for Ali to get a couple of years older. No, he wanted to fight him and get the job done. Ali, legend that he is, said, well, he's the heavyweight champion, that's who I want to fight. They got it done. Then you go to, even to the 80s, the heavyweight series, Mike Tyson. Now, yes, he fought Trevor Berbick. It was all probably geared towards an end game. Fought Trevor Berbick, who was probably the lesser light of the champions at the time. Fought him, knocked him over. They got all the heavyweights on board to get the job done. Then he fought Bone Crusher Smith. Then he had a tune-up, well, we'll say a tune-up. He fought Pinklon Thomas in a voluntary, even though Pinklon Thomas was a former world champion as well. Then he fought Tony Tucker. Again, there was no rooting around. Let's get the unifications going. He fought Tony Tucker, and guess what? They got it done to unify the world championship. The Michael Spinks fight. The lineal champion versus the undisputed champion. Yes, I'm sure there was some behind-the-scenes stuff going on, but guess what? They got it done because that's what good fighters do. They want to fight each other and prove they're the best. That's probably a bad example. I don't think Michael Spinks wanted to fight Tyson at all. However, he knew that his legacy was at stake and said, well, if it's going to take that, I'm going to go fight this guy who was at his absolute peak and looked like a scared rabbit in the headlights, but he still fought him. And as I said, I'm sure there were a few hiccups along the way, but they got the job done when the fight needed to happen. Not 2 or 3 years down the track. When it needed to happen, they got it done and just made it happen. Then we go to the big four. Hagler Leonard. Now, I know there's probably I think I said it before myself about Leonard fighting Hagler at the right time. Lots of things when he had the eye injury and retirement and everything else going on. But at the end of the day, they fought. And there was implications as far as, you know, the sanctioning bodies and all that sort of stuff. I think the WBC put their belt on the line. The other two said we're not going to sanction it. But at that level, belts don't matter. They don't matter. It's Leonard versus Hagler. Wouldn't care what belt it's for. People are going to pay a shitload. Now, I think from memory, Leonard might have got $11 or $12 million. Hagler might have got 6 or 7. I can't remember. Because you could argue, well, it's because of the money these days and that sort of stuff. No, back then, this fight had taken place these days. That's $150 million each. I would probably 150 for Leonard, 100 for Hagler. But guess what? They got the fight done. They got into a room and they signed it off and got it done. Hagler Hearns, again, 2 fighters at their absolute peak. Could have tooted and froed and rooted around. They made the fight happen. Leonard Duran won. You had Duran coming up, you know, the 2 hottest fighters in the world at that stage. Again, no rooting around. Leonard wanted a Duran type of opponent. Duran wanted to prove he wasn't just the best at lightweight. He wanted to prove he was the best pound for pound. Said, bring it on. They fought when they were at their peak. They got the job done. Leonard Hearns, same thing. Undisputed world championship fight. They both wanted to fight each other to prove who was the best. And they were in the early 20s. early 20s, and they fought each other. And they fought each other again 10 years later again to prove who was the best, because the first fight, again, got it done. To a lesser extent, Donald Curry, Milton McCrory, 1986, I think it was, for the undisputed welterweight championship. Who was best? One had the WBC, I think Curry had the WBA IBF. McCrory had the WBC. Who's the best? Debate either way, both in the mid-20s. Guess what happened? They sat in the room and they got it done. And they signed to fight to show who was the best. Then you go back or forward to a little bit more modern age. Oscar De La Hoya, Felix Trinidad, De La Hoya Whitaker, Chavez Whitaker, Chavez Taylor, you name it. All these fighters wanted to fight the best and they got it done. There wasn't this bullshit about, you know, this promoter saying this and this management saying this and we want rights on this. And I know it's a little bit different these days and all this, but at the end of the day, it's not. It was big business back then. I know there's a few more things to overcome these days, but at the end of the day, the promoters and managers and networks and everything, and even sometimes the fighters are holding these fights up, which is hindering boxing, which is just letting UFC and the Jake Paul circus just go on past and make boxing what it is. And I don't blame a lot of boxing fans for watching the Jake Paul fiasco and all this other UFC and all this other shit that we're seeing these days, because they haven't got a lot of big fights to watch. They haven't. There's nothing to watch. Back in the day, there might have been one fight every month, massive fight every month to tune in and see, whether it be pay-per-view or free-to-air, whatever it might be. I know free-to-air is almost history now, but there's none of these massive fights from years gone by, and I just named about a dozen. There's probably 50 that I could probably have gone through. The massive names that fought each other for unified titles or whatever it might be. They just got it done and they fought each other to prove who was the best. And guess what? The legacy wasn't affected at all. Hearns lost to Leonard, and he eventually got the draw with Hearns. No one really talks about those results as such. De La Hoya is rated one of the greatest or most popular fighters of all time because he fought the Trinidads and Whitakers and Chavezes and Mosleys and, you know, he fought everyone. These days it's all too much about the records and fighting once. How the hell are we supposed to gain traction in this sport when you've got your biggest names in the sport? They either fight once a year or every 18 months, and in between, it's just this shit show of who am I going to fight? And I've got the mandatory here, and I got this there, and I got this there, and he hasn't got enough Instagram followers, so I can't fight him, and I want to be first on the poster, and I want to be the first one out into the ring. Is this what boxing's come to? And I think I spoke about this when I went to the UFC last month in Vegas. To go there, so the fans are so invested. They're there in the numbers, passionate UFC fans. The fighters get out there, and it's all about the fans. All about the fans. All they could talk about afterwards was making the fans happy. And I want to fight this guy because that's what the fans want. None of this after the boxing fights. He's like, oh yeah, I'll fight him if the money's right, and if I get to come out first, and if my name's on top of the poster. And how many fights has he had? How many has he won? Come on. You know, and even to a lesser extent these days, you know, even on the domestic scene. Now, I saw a really good Instagram post today. It was from Ben Sava. Okay, it's very, very low scale, let's say, but he put a great thing on Instagram today when he said female boxer or MMA fighter. You could probably put in there as well. I want to fight. Okay, I've got your fight on this date. Yep, no drama. Let's go. Fight locked in. The usual boxer. Well, what's his name? Who's his trainer? How many fights has he had? You know, what star sign is he? Is he orthodox, southpaw? You know, it's so many things they go through till it gets to the point where, as a promoter myself being one, it's like, whatever, let's move on. That's what I love about, I will say what I love about the MMA fraternity. They fight for legacy, not with wins and losses. It's where they stand in the scheme of things as far as the fan base goes. And the UFC crowd, they don't even look at records. I'm sure they have a skim over it. They don't care about records. They just support the best fighters out there. Nate Diaz, I think, he lost like 8 or 9 fights or something. He's one of the most popular fighters ever. And a warrior. People love him. Do you really think he gives a shit about any losses on his record? He'd rather go up there and lose, like fight like a warrior than lose and go there and fight some pushover and win. That's a different mentality, but it also extends to the fans. It's all about the fans, and unfortunately, I've got a real suspicion in boxing. The fans, they don't give a flying. Flying shit. I'll say. I was going to say something else. They could not give two shits about the fans. I'm sorry. I'm a boxing tragic. I've been following boxing since I've been about 7 or 8 years old. I'm late 40s now. They don't give a shit about the fans, where the UFC do, and that's why they're kicking boxing's ass. I don't know, whatever, or what else I can say, or however else I can explain it. So interesting to see what you guys think. So I'll get to some what you guys think. I'll get to some comments there. Ronnie Picken, how are you? Ronnie, thanks for tuning in, mate. Great show. Lyndon, can't agree with the comment that the sport we all love is dying when you consider yesterday we had nearly 12 hours of boxing on 3 different shows. Mate, I get ya, I do, but what I said at the start was none of them were the main fights of the weekend. It was Jake Paul, unfortunately. Mate, I hope I'm wrong, I really do, and I know we've had some biggish fights. My problem is that when we're getting these fights 2, 3, 4 times a year instead of every month. Good to have. Look, if you're a real boxing fan, it was great to have those different shows on yesterday to tune in, but they weren't big fights. I'm talking big fights, the best fighting the best. And I went through those list of fighters before, just regularly, just big fight after big fight after big fight. And I'm sorry, we're just not getting, we're getting maybe the big fighters that are fighting, well, not fighting regularly, but they're coming about. But well, look, mate, we've got Lomachenko yesterday. Yeah, okay, it was a good win by him, but it wasn't a big fight. We've got Fury against Chisora. That's not a big fight. Okay, I will say a good fight coming up, and these are 2 guys I really admire as Estrada and Chocolatito. There's an example of what boxing should be. Fighting for the 3rd time, because you know what? We want to prove who's the best, and the fans want us to fight. The chicks, or the ladies, I should say, sorry, no offense, the ladies, the female fighters. You know, this year we've got Ebony Bridges, Shannon O'Connell on a domestic level. You know, we've had Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano. And guess what? They're going to fight again because you know what? That's what the fans want. And it was disputed. And they want to see who's the best. You know, meanwhile, we've got Crawford and Spence going, oh, geez, you know, I want to be the A side. You know, and if I am the A side, I want 60-40, not 55-45. I don't know. I don't know. Tell me I'm wrong, guys. I don't know. What I tell the amateurs, if your O means 0, you're in this sport to test yourself. Mate, when it comes to the amateurs, 0, it means nothing. That's what I tell all the amateurs I deal with. A 0 means nothing. I went to the Olympic Games, World Championships, Commonwealth Games. I don't even know how many fights I lost. Do I really care? I look at the tournaments I went to. I don't give a shit how many fights I lost. And all the other fighters out there, I'm sure they don't either. Could not give a toss about how many fights you lost. It's when you win at the right time. This is the thing. It's a little bit of the Floyd Mayweather syndrome. It's the 0 is about everything. They just think that, geez, if I lose, my career's over. You know, geez, look at Canelo. When he lost to Bivol, oh my God, Canelo, he's finished. The guy's 32 years old. And before that was the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. This is the mentality of boxing fans. Look at the alternative for the UFC fans. You lose the fight, oh, well, he's going to have to get a couple of wins to get back up there. Guess what? When he does get a couple of wins, hey, come on back, let's go. We're behind you. That's the difference. Anyway. Can't beat those guys back in the days, real fighters, but that O mentality really ruined it. Mate, you're 100% right. And this is what's killing boxing, the O mentality. And this, not just the O mentality, but it's just getting the one-upmanship on each other. You know, like the best promoters, whether it be boxing, whatever, it's not UFC because they obviously, you know, they're the fighter, you're off the show or out of the organisation. But other sports around the world where they get the job done. The best administrators in the world, whether it be football, soccer, whatever, you know what, they get the job done. And I'll take an example. I'm just going off track a little bit here. Let's say it's football, whether it be NRL or AFL or soccer, whatever it might be. The recruiters and the list managers, they go in there, and the best ones go in there. They don't try and screw the other guy too much. They don't try and rip them off or undersell them or try and pull a swifter. They go in there and they go, you know what, let's get it done. What's it going to take? Yep, that's fair, yep, okay, yep, shake hands, let's go, because we've got more important things to do than sit around here bullshitting about this crap. I've got other deals to do. They're the best ones. And there's no coincidence that the best teams in those sports are the ones that don't stuff around with all the bullshit trying to undermine all the other list managers and recruiters and that sort of stuff. They go in there, they do a fair deal, and they get it done, they get out. That's the problem with boxing. We haven't got those negotiators in there on both sides. Not to say one side's not trying to be that way, but the other side's not. All we need to do is get the two bodies to be able to get in the room and give and take a little bit and get the job done. And I've said it 100 times. But it's too many egos, those managers. It's all about we showed them. We showed them. How good are we? You know, we've just put the fight back 3 years, but hey, we showed them. We got an extra 5%, whatever. I mean, it's just crap. Andy again, mate. What do we got? I do agree with you on Floyd, though. Shane, he earned those exhibitions and dollars, and people still buying celebrity fans. Yeah, I said, mate. He's made no bones about what he's doing. He's not trying to pretend they're real fighters. He says, this guy's a YouTuber. I'm going to fight him. It's going to cost you $60 to watch. There it is. There you go. We do have some good fights coming up. Yep, I just said Chocolatito Estrada. Usyk Fury, Inoue Butler. Yeah, Inoue Butler's, in the scheme of things, is a big fight, Larry, but I don't think it's necessarily a big fight. I don't think so. It's big in the scheme of things because we're going to have an undisputed champion, of course. But a big fight, yeah. But hey, at least it's happening. So that's good. Lopez, Pedraza, yep. Regis versus Zapata. Yeah, no, there are good fights, but the Usyk Fury one's not done yet, and hopefully it will get done. I just hope we're not sitting there this time of year or this time next year saying, "Oh, is it going to be Usyk Fury? Is it going to be Joshua Fury?" I don't know. Don't know. But my point is that at the moment, these haven't happened yet. I hope they do. I want to see it on a more regular basis. Because why isn't Crawford Spence happening? Why isn't Garcia Davis happening? And who's to say in the next couple of weeks it gets signed? I'm hoping it does. But in the meantime, it's just been this to and fro, one-upmanship, and I'm just sick of it. Floyd ruined boxing with making fighters so protective of their own. Yep, I can't argue with that, mate. The O most likely just means you haven't fought top-tier competition and cherry-picked your way through a division. Mate, I agree. And I do happen to subscribe to the fact if you've got an O on your record, it means you haven't fought anybody worth of any note. I think they're really good. Floyd's the exception, of course. But look at Manny, one of the greatest fighters of all time. In my opinion, one of the top 5 pound for pound of all time. If not, top 10, whatever you want to put him. The guy's got like 8 losses. He's a throwback. He's one of those guys, not about... This is probably my classic example to my point. Doesn't matter how many losses you've had. It's about the fighters you've fought and how you've gone and what you've done. Pacquiao's a classic example. And De La Hoya is another one. A lot of losses on his record, but geez, you know, these are great fighters. Mate, you should watch the Fury interview on the Georgie Shaw podcast. Fury went off on the guy. I think I did read something about that. Don't know if it's fake, but Fury seemed pissed at the guy. I think I did see a clip on that, Larry. So, obviously, it's touched a nerve. It's touched a nerve. So anyway, guys, my point is, I rattled off all those fights before. They all got made when they were supposed to fight. Give or take 6 months, a year, whatever it might be, they got made at the right time. And I could probably list another 50. I just quickly, off the top of my head, I rattled those fights off. And they all fought each other, and they're all legends of the sport. Every single one of those fighters I mentioned are all legends of the sport. Doesn't matter about losses and what belts. I wouldn't have it. I got no clue half the time how many belts these guys have won. And I think in time, no one remembers the belts. It's about legacy and who you fought. The Warriors fighting or the best fighting the best. And unfortunately, we're just not getting it at the moment. Even if they do fight, they're fighting once a year. And love him or hate him, Canelo's a bit of a throwback. He's fighting 3 or 4 times a year. You can't take that off him. So he's trying to give back. But anyway. All right, guys. Because there is a little bit of a lag involved, I'm probably a couple of comments will come up as I go to the next subject. But what do you guys think? Let me know. Whether it's live here or if you're watching afterwards, put in the comment section there. What do you think? Am I just stuck in the 80s and 90s or 70s, whatever it might be? Am I just stuck in the past and I don't know, this is the new age? Because if this is the new age, then I don't want it. Call me an oldie or whatever you want to call me. Take me back to the 80s and 90s because that's where I want to go, because that's when real fighters fought real fighters. And another one, Chavez, I'm just looking at him here. He fought everyone. Gave everyone an opportunity. Yeah, towards his career he probably lost a few. Fought everyone when they were at their peak. So anyway, Azuma Nelson. You know, there's a reason why he fought guys, 3, sometimes 4 times to get the point across. If there was a split decision or a draw or a close win, he fought him again just to make sure of it. That's what we're missing in boxing these days. But I just take these guys, forget about fighting each other 2, 3, 4 times. Just fight each other once. Or better yet, fight more than once a year. Anyway, just my opinion. So keep the comments coming there, guys. The next thing we're going to get on to as our last segment, Probably not for the international people that are watching. This is more for the Aussies, which is probably 95% of our watchers, of course. This is the top 10 performances of all time. Now there's a reason why I'm not calling it the best wins of all time, because we've got a couple that aren't even wins, as strange as that might sound. Got one more. Again, I'll keep these comments coming up, because again, we've got that little bit of a lag of when you guys are seeing the vision. Very accurate description of what's going on in boxing. I think you're bang on. Sadly, a lot of the mainstream experts won't touch the issues you talk about because they're afraid of losing credentials. Mate, you hit it on the head. 100%. Too much of that goes on. That's why I love the Paul Malignagis of the world. He doesn't give a shit. I know he used to work for Showtime, was probably a little bit more subdued back in the day. Now he's not working for those guys. He's got his own social media channels. If you don't follow him. He tells it the way it is. You'll have it out with anyone. And whether you agree with him or not, at least he's bringing it to the surface. He's probably talking about this stuff I'm talking about as well. Too many people just worried about their own ass. And again, that's what's happening. And I would love it to be at the point where we get, let's just say for an example, it's Errol Spence. He says to Al Heyman, you make this Crawford fight within the next 4 months or you're out. You work for me, not the other way around. Al Heyman's got this thing, and again, it's the Floyd Mayweather thing of, well, he's the guru. Well, mate, you're only a guru when you make so much money because these guys pay you the money to get it done. If you're not getting the job done, if I was Crawford, I'd say get it done or you're out. Take your commission with you. I'll get someone that makes the fight. Crawford's pretty much a free agent. I'm not going into who's right or who's wrong in the whole thing, by the way. All I'm saying is the whole thing's been held up, and I think the common denominator seems to be Al Heyman. So, all right, here we go. Yo, Lyndon. Yep, I'm not sure what that means, mate. I'm hashtag the hell out of your post for more. Oh, thank you. Hashtag the hell out of your post for more. Yeah, I probably should, mate. I should, shouldn't I? Yep, I should do that. I'm trying to still get with the Instagram thing of how it all works and the algorithms and all that sort of stuff. Cambersis versus Tio, Apatai versus Breeders, Zoo versus Judah. These the... Okay, yes, let's get into it, mate. All right, so the... yes, thanks, mate. Yep, now I get you. All right, so let's get into it. So, again, this is not the best wins of all time. This is the best performances or achievements of all time by Aussie boxers. And again, I understand you might not agree with all of it, or maybe the order. That's fine. If you've got any other ones that you want to throw in there, I'm going to go through them from number 10 to number 1, and then I'll put the whole lot up on the screen, and we can debate, well, not debate, but we can discuss what you guys think. So, again, guys, my opinion. So don't come at me because your guy didn't get number 1 or 2 and he's ranked 7th or 8th. All right, well, they're all different achievements for different reasons. Now, just as a bit of disclosure, I'm not going to put the Zoo Judah fight in there for the same reasons I won't put Costa in my pound for pound of all time. Love Costa, but at the end of the day, it doesn't excuse the fact that he was a Russian fighter based in Australia. And then when his career was over, he went home. So that's the way I'm not. This has nothing to do with Costa as a person or anything like that. It's just simply a criteria. If you're not from the country, I know I have got 1 or 2 in there that weren't born in Australia, but they started their career, or they lived in Australia their whole life, started their career there, ended their career there, and lived there after the career. Costa, as much as I love him, was a Russian amateur with 300 odd fights under his belt, came over, had his career, and went home. So I'm not putting him in the criteria. As much as that effort against Judah would definitely have been in there. All right, what do we got there, Jay? For the general public to thrive on boxing, we need good, intimidating heavyweights. Tyson, Holyfield, Lewis, and co were great. Tyson Fury walks out singing "Sweet Alabama." Well, he does. Look, I probably differ a little bit there. That Tyson Fury, we need characters like him. But I'm with you, mate. Tyson, Holyfield, Lewis, even Holmes, Witherspoon, Mike Weaver, Harry Coetzee, Frank Bruno. Take me back. That's all I'm saying. All right, Larry, you're already got your tip in. I'm assuming this is your tip for number 1. Let's get into it, eh? So again, I'm going to start at number 10 and finish at number 1, and then I'll put the whole lot up and we can go over. Deep breath. Here we go. Number 10. Now this is one that wasn't a win. This was a loss. I'm referring to Troy Waters. He was stopped in the 3rd round by Terry Norris back in 1993 for the WBC Super Welterweight title. For me, one of the most heroic performances and proud performances from an Aussie that I've ever seen. Yes, it only went 3 rounds, but it was 3 rounds of hell. Norris was making his 8th defence of the title. He'd beaten Sugar Ray Leonard, Donald Curry, Meldrick Taylor, Maurice Blocker, to name a few. Would go on to obviously beat Simon Brown and numerous others. But for me, he was 34-3. Troy Waters was 20-2. He'd already had a world title fight 4 years before that against Gianfranco Rossi in Italy. He'd lost that one. Had no reason to be in the ring with Terry Norris. Took the fight and gave him absolute hell. Put him down as well. And he did get stopped. I think they stopped him in the corner. He had cuts and, you know, he's getting tailed up. But for me, as far as where Terry Norris, he was probably in the top 2 or 3 pound for pound in the world at the time, and he gave him fits. So for me, he didn't actually get the win. I know it's a little bit controversial, but for me, that is the number 10 performance of all time as an Aussie boxer. Yep, Tyson never fought in Russia as a pro. Australia, just my opinion. Yeah, it's not really whether he fought here as a pro, James. It's more so, I know he's a citizen, but I know I'm sort of being a little bit picky, but I just want to keep the criteria nice and black and white. As I said, end of the day, he's a Russian fighter that based himself here and went home afterwards, even though he did get citizenship. I'm sorry, I just don't see him as an Aussie fighter. I don't know. But I'm not arguing with you, because if you see the other way, that's fine. Larry, actually, I might put a few of these comments up later after I'm finished. Actually, no, I'll put them up as we go. Danny Green versus Marcus Bayer, but they robbed him with a DQ. Yeah, they did. Only had himself to blame, though, Larry. Look, Danny, it's such a great job. And, yeah, I think the disqualification was bullshit. But why put yourself in that position? He had him beat. He totally caught Marcus Bayer, like, unawares. He didn't obviously rate Danny Green. Took him on as a voluntary. Put his WBC title on the line. Danny Green battered him for I think it was 5 rounds. Had him on toast. And, like it or not, gave the referee a reason to disqualify him with a headbutt. You can't argue with it. Well, you can argue with it, but when you're in the hometown of a heavy favourite in Germany, which is hard enough to win over there as it is, to give an opportunity to disqualify you, I'm sorry, he's only got himself to blame. And he let a golden opportunity go to win the WBC super middleweight title, and he blew it. Even though I thought it was bullshit and he should have won, end of the day, he gave them a reason to disqualify him, and they took it. So, it's his own fault. Larry, that was a classic. Germany, not the best place for boxing. No way in hell. Andy, Lionel Rose versus Fighting Harada. Yep, it was a good effort. Let's get on to number 9. Now, again, this is just me. My number 9, number 10, by the way, as I said, was Troy Waters, Terry Norris. Number 9 for me, Lester Ellis, 15-round decision over 1KU in 1985. Was for the IBF Junior Lightweight title. Now, I'm not pretending at any stage that the title was like it is these days, with the credentials of the belt, because back then you may as well say it was like an IBO or a WBF belt or a WBU, whatever. Wasn't held in high regard, even though I think Larry Holmes might have taken the heavyweight title just after this fight and gave it a lot more credibility. We're talking about a 19-year-old kid. 19. Let that sink in. 14-0, hadn't fought anybody of note, of world class. He did have the win over John Tachula for the Commonwealth title. That was disputed, by the way, but that was his best win. Coming against, I'm not pretending 1KU was some superstar, because 25-1-3 from South Korea, but it was the occasion. A 19-year-old kid coming up against 1KU, packed festival hall. We hadn't won a world title in boxing, I think, in 16 or 17 years, whatever it might have been. A lot of pressure on the kid, and I just can't believe he was only 19. I remember watching it live on TV. I would have been 11 at the time, and to think that he was only 8 years older than me is unbelievable. And I still remember watching it. It was a war. He had cuts over both eyes. He had a cut on the cheek. 1KU came at him, and again, I'm not pretending 1KU was some superstar, as I said, but he was a tough, hardened pro against a 19-year-old kid with all the pressure in the world against him. And I just think that, regardless of the title on the line, still a world title, of course, but that performance to me, with the stakes and the pressure involved, to me was number 9, Lester Ellis, 1KU, who I think tragically might have died a few years ago, 1KU, which is a bit of a shame. Larry Liston, Gill versus Felix Sturm. Well, funny you should say that, Larry, because number 8 for me is Daniel Gill with a 12-round decision over Felix Sturm back in 2012. Now, to put this in context, Daniel Gill was 27-1. The one loss was against Anthony Mundine. Had a couple of okay wins, but not really anyone at the level. Felix Sturm was 37-2-2. He'd already held the WBO middleweight title. He lost to Oscar De La Hoya, of course. The WBA super middleweight title had gone 13-0. So he'd won 13 straight fights going into this fight. In his hometown of Germany, Daniel Gill went over there, took the belt, and then I think he beat Sebastian Silvestre a couple of fights later, again in Germany, to take his IBF belt, I think it was. So for me, that's number 8 for the best performance, I think. Well, look, it wasn't the most exciting fight, but to go over there with all the issues that foreign fighters have had in Germany, to go over there and get the win, I thought was unbelievable and a very, very underrated win. And Sam Solomon did it a couple of years after this as well, which for Sam Solomon was an awesome job as well. Hitman Harding, baby. Yes, we'll keep tuned in. Fennec Azuma Nelson draw. Yep. Joe Bugner, Henry Cooper. Now, Larry, I know it's Aussie Joe Bugner, but he was a Hungarian based in England, fighting an Englishman. Sorry, I can't put that in the Aussie performances. If that happened after 1987, you never know, but it would have fallen under the same category as Costa Zoo. Joe Bugner's not an Aussie. You can call himself Aussie Joe Bugner all he wants, but he's not Australian, unfortunately. I know he based himself here. I think he might even still live here. He might have got citizenship. I'm sorry, Larry. He's not an Australian boxer. And he certainly wasn't Aussie back then. He probably would never have even been to Australia when he fought Henry Cooper. Fennec Nelson. Yeah, we're going to get to that shortly. Let's get to number 7. Jimmy Carruthers. KO1. Vic Tawil. Now, this fight took place in South Africa. Jimmy Carruthers was only 14-0 and had fought nobody. Went to South Africa to fight Vic Tawil, I will pronounce it. 26-0-1. Took place in 1952 for the World Bantamweight title. No WBC, WBA, WBO, nothing like that. This was a hardcore World Bantamweight Championship for all the marbles. It was undisputed back then. And he went there and stopped him in the first round. Threw 110 punches in 2 minutes, if you can figure that out, which is just unbelievable. And backed it up a couple of fights later with a 10th round stoppage over in South Africa as well. So an unbelievable performance from Jimmy Carruthers with a first round stoppage of Vic Tawil. Oh, this is a good one. James Hussein Jorge Arce. Or Arce, however you want to pronounce it. Yes. Unbelievable performance that was. However, we'll move on. We'll see whether it's in there. Number 6. The Hitman, Jeff Harding, with a 12th round knockout of Dennis Andres, I should say. Took place in 1989, Atlantic City, New Jersey. And if you remember this, Jeff Harding, 14-0, hadn't fought anybody. Fought Don Lee, who was a perennial sort of fringe contender back in the day. He beat him, but apart from that, hadn't really beaten anyone. Come up against Dennis Andres. Now, Andres was 34-7-2, but he'd lost in 10 rounds to Tommy Hearns a couple of fights before this. This was for the WBC light heavyweight title. Harding was a late replacement, had absolutely no place being in there. I remember watching the pre-fight previews, if you will, on I think it was ABC Sports back in the day in America. They had no idea who Jeff Harding was. Gave him absolutely no chance whatsoever. They were just hoping he might stand up for a few rounds. Well, not only did he stand up, he put off one of the great performances ever. Now, to be honest with you, I can't believe this is actually number 6. Because I would have almost had this in the top 1 or 2, but after doing it all and having a good look at it and analysing a little bit further, number 6, very surprising, and I've got no dramas if some of you guys have got some issues with that, because it was, if you haven't watched it, get off here now and go watch it on YouTube. It is an amazing fight, way behind on points after 11 rounds, needed a knockout to win, pulled out the Rocky win in the last round. He dropped Andres 3 times. cuts and everything, blood everywhere, no hope of winning, and pulled it out in the last round. And it's probably, that would have to probably be my favourite, if I'm going to say my favourite Aussie performance of all time, but couldn't quite crack the top 5 as far as greatest performances of all time, based on a few of these other ones I'm going to get to at the moment. Larry, yep, I like this one too. Lucas Brown, Ruslan Shagayev, yep, I remember watching this. What was it, 2016, I think it was. Great win by Lucas Brown. Look, I'm sorry, I couldn't fit him into the bottom 5, but definitely an honorary mention for sure, because that was a massive win again in someone else's home country. Wasn't supposed to win, was behind on points, and boom, I think it was the 10th round, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, that he got him out of there. Number 5. This is a modern one. I've gone for George Kambosos Jr. with the 12-round win over Teofimo Lopez. George Kambosos was 19-0. Lopez was 16-0, so relatively inexperienced as well. Now, I, for one, again, this is one of my favourite performances of all time, I will say. I remember watching, I mean, it was only a year ago, but screaming, watching it from the couch on pay-per-view or main event, whatever it was. Now, the reason I haven't got this any higher, I'll just get back into focus there, is because, to me, the performance itself from George was great. He dominated the early rounds, dropped him in the first round. Lopez came on, dropped George in the 10th round. I must admit, at that stage, I thought, hey, great job, George, but I think this is the end of the road for you. Dug deep, won the last 2 rounds, and won the undisputed lightweight title. The only reason he's probably not higher is because Teofimo Lopez, yes, I know he'd had the win over Lomachenko, but apart from probably Richard Comrie, maybe 1 or 2 others, I don't think really had the credentials of some of these other opponents. That's why George is not any higher. So for the guts and heart, the undisputed lightweight title, I understand, but as I said, Lopez, I mean, he was regarded as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, but to me, looking at his record, more so potential rather than actual runs on the board, apart from the Lomachenko win, which was great, but only enough to get number 5 for me. Shame, Joe Bugner, what a legend. He got me and my mates into a sold-out John the Beast Mugabe fight. Is that right? I didn't know that. Well, there you go. Look, I have met Joe. Look, he's a great guy, but we can't excuse the fact that he's a Hungarian or born in Hungary who's ended up living and everything in England and had his career there, had his second sort of mini career in Australia, and he's based here. But at the end of the day, as I said, I can't call his performance as an Australian. Number 4. Jay, mate, I'm sorry. Sonny Bill Barry Hall is not in here. I couldn't squeeze it in. I'm sorry. And Paul Gallen and Justin Hodges isn't here either, mate. I apologise for that. Let's go to number 4. Johnny Famechon with a 15-round decision over Jose Allegra. Now, let me put this in perspective for you. Johnny Famechon was quite experienced at this stage, by the way. He had 57 fights. It was 47, 4, and 6. 6 draws, if you will. Jose Allegra was 105 wins, 5 losses, 4 draws. This place took place in 1969 for the world featherweight title. Now, to put this in perspective here, Johnny Famechon, 78, 1 and 1 streak he was on. And the loss that he had was against Howard Winstone. In that 78, 1 and 1 loss, he actually avenged that. So Allegra was just a beast. And Johnny Famechon went to England to beat him and won the world featherweight title in that fight. Yes, Shane, I'll get to that in a sec there, mate. I won't put it up just yet. Number 3, because that's probably going to be a little bit controversial, Shane. And it's this one I'm talking about. Jai, yep, remember that forever. Yep. Number 3, I've got Lionel Rose with a 15-round decision over fighting Harada. So again, to put this in perspective, Lionel Rose 27-2. Fighting Harada was 50 wins and 3 losses. Lionel Rose went to Japan to fight. So in his hometown, Harada was making the 5th defense of his title. He'd won against Eddie Joffre, the all-time great, in 1965. And this was in 1969, this fight. And Lionel Rose pulled the upset. So a massive, massive upset in the world of boxing. This Aussie going to Japan to fight the legend fighting Harada. Again, if you haven't seen it, check it out on YouTube, because it was one of the most monumental wins in Australian boxing history. Which goes to number 2. Now, unfortunately, we can't fit 3 into 2 here, but number 2, again, this is not a win. This is, in fact, a draw. It is Jeff Fenech with a 12-round draw over Azuma Nelson. Jeff was 25-0. Azuma Nelson was 33-2. Now, Nelson had 15 world title fights heading into this fight, was 13-2. The losses were against Salvador Sanchez and Pernell Whitaker a year earlier. He had made 12 successful defenses of featherweight/super featherweight world title belts, and was supposed to beat Fenech. He's probably still top 5 pound for pound in the world at the time. Jeff, even though he'd had some good wins, wasn't really regarded internationally as much as he was here. And Jeff went over there and, in my opinion, won 9 out of 12 rounds and almost stopped Nelson in the last round. Let's take the second fight out of it. This is based on the first fight. To me, that was, well, it says a draw, but it was a win for Fenech. It would have given him his 4th world championship. And to me, that is the second best performance of an Aussie boxer of all time. Number 1 for me, look, again, this is my opinion, was actually quite easy. It is, drum roll, Jeff Horn with a 12-round decision over Manny Pacquiao. It took place in 2017 in Queensland for the WBO welterweight title. Jeff was 17-0-1. Pacquiao was 59-6-2. Again, to put it in perspective, Jeff had no right to be in the ring with Manny Pacquiao. His biggest win was against Randall Bailey, a washed-up Randall Bailey, if you will. Manny Pacquiao, well, he fought absolutely everyone. The list is too long to go through. You know the drill. If you're on here, you're a boxing fan. I don't really need to go through his portfolio of wins. So Jeff had absolutely no reason or to be in the ring with Manny Pacquiao. And I know there's the argument, well, he didn't really win. You know, Manny Pacquiao ripped off. No, it was I've said this again numerous times. It was a very, very, very close fight. Jeff Horn got the decision. I scored the fight 7-5 for Jeff, I will say. I thought he won the fight against Manny Pacquiao. And I just think to watch that fight, to dominate the early rounds, Pacquiao, as the champion and all-time great, came back hard. Almost had Jeff out of there in round 9. There might be the argument for 10-8. I didn't score at 10-8 at all. He had Jeff a little bit wobbly, but don't really think he had him really on the verge of going down at any stage. He landed a couple. Jeff was a bit wobbly, but I don't think he had him out on his feet at any stage. I don't think he was in danger of going down at any stage. Yes, Manny won the round conclusively, but that's about it. And then Jeff came back and won the 11th and 12th round. Just so much heart, this guy. Battered, bruised, busted up. Won the WBO title. For me, one of the biggest upsets in boxing history, if you ask me, not just Australia. And to me, that is the best performance ever. The honorary mention, of course, I'm glad you brought up Jai Pataya. I really wanted to get him in. I almost had him in front of Troy Waters, I will say. The only reason I didn't is because Marius Breedis, again, probably a little bit with the Teofimo Lopez and Cambosis thing, why he wasn't a little bit higher. Because Breedis, look, he was the world champion at cruiserweight, make no bones about it. I just think as far as credentials goes, he wasn't probably quite as high up as some of those other opponents go. So, look, you could probably make an argument to be in there, and I'm not going to argue with it. But for me, when I looked at it, I'll put it up so we can have a look while we're going there. So you can see there, have a look at it, give me your comments. But, yeah, I just couldn't go past those fights there. And as I said, the one I probably could have taken out might have been either Ellis or Waters. But it was just tough to do. Just such unbelievable performances they were. Lionel missed weight, I think, by memory and had to hit the sauna. Well, I think he did that nearly every fight he had, Jay. Did Lionel. He shouldn't have been a bantamweight. I think in this day and age would have at least been a super bantamweight. But, you know, that fight against fighting Harada was just one of the all-time best performances. Imagine if WBC looks at that Azuma fight and overturns it like Jeff suggested, Lennon. Well, a quick story about that. If you haven't seen it, we did in our classic fights, we did the first Fenech Nelson fight. And Jeff was actually on the episode. He came on and went through it all, which was great. And I'm going to do Jeff and Manny Pacquiao at some stage, and I'm going to try and get Jeff on for the same thing. I was going to look at it, doing it a couple of months ago, but It was around the time that of the anniversary of the fight was, and I think Main Event did a special on it where Jeff was on, so I put it on the back burner. But at some stage, that will be one of our classic fights, and we'll try and get Jeff on, or Dean Lonigan, or one of those guys on to have a chat about it. On that episode, it was brought up about it. We said we should start a lobby to get the WBC to give Jeff his belt. And strange enough, about a month after that, it got some momentum. I'm not sure what's happened because of it, but did get some momentum that the WBC were talking about it. I don't think it's happened yet, but you never know. Bob Arum thought Horn beat Pacquiao by a point. Yep, he did. And then, of course, we had the independent judges score it afterwards. Now, I'm not going to argue with anyone that said they thought Pacquiao won. No problem. But as I said, this whole thing about Pacquiao was ripped off, bullshit, he was ripped off. Extremely close fight that just happened to go Jeff Horn's way. And I had it 7-5. Now, could have had it a draw, maybe alone. I thought Jeff pretty much won 5 of the first 6, and then I gave him 11 and 12. So 7 rounds to 5. That's just my opinion. And Bob Arum, yep, he thought Horn beat Pac-Man. Freddie Roach, of all people, thought that Jeff Horn won the fight. At the time, he just zipped his lip. He didn't say anything. Didn't actually start to complain until everyone had the pile on, and which I thought was pretty ordinary for Manny. But at the end of the day, you know, if you're on a roll, you may as well go with it. But to this day, it really pisses me off that Jeff's legacy, to some extent, has been tarnished by that fight. I think he's been ostracised and ridiculed and berated, whatever you want to call it, simply because he beat Manny Pacquiao, who was one of the most famous and popular fighters of all time. And he's ridiculed because he beat Manny Pacquiao. But to call it a rip-off, come on. That is absolute crap, in my opinion. How about Teddy Atlas at Horn with win over Pac-Man? Still shaking my head at that. Yeah, mate, I think I spoke about this not long ago as well. Teddy Atlas, I think, is just a piece of shit, if you ask me. That was Horn's moment. Regardless of what you thought, maybe go about it in a respectful way. The guy just jumps out the ring, and Teddy Atlas is like, I don't think he won that fight. I mean, that was just... And he was the first person that Jeff had spoken to after he got out of the ring. I thought Tim Bradley handled it really well on the day. But Teddy Atlas, again, as I said, just a piece of shit. This is a guy that's supposedly an all-time great. Well, mate, what have you ever done in the boxing ring? Yeah, you've got some credits as far as a trainer goes, and you've been on talk shows and a bit of commentary and that sort of stuff. Well, mate, I'm sorry, I don't take the word of someone that's never really done anything in the sport as gospel. I'm sorry, especially over someone when he's giving shit to Jeff Horn. He's just been in there and for one of the all-time great performances and taken a world title belt, and he has to demean him and try and bring him down like that. I thought it was absolutely horrendous. So there it is there. Number 10, Troy Waters, Terry Norris. Number 9, Lester Ellis, 1 Kill You. Number 8, Daniel Geale, Felix Sturm. 7 is Jimmy Carollas over Vic Tawil. 6 was Jeff Harding over Dennis Andres. 5 was George Kambosos over Teofimo Lopez. 4 was Johnny Famechon over Jose Legra. 3 was Lionel Rose over fighting Harada. 2 was Jeff Fennick and Zuma Nelson. And 1 was Jeff Horn, Manny Pacquiao. What do you think, guys? Let me know what you're thinking. And, yeah, I'll happily cop it on the chin. In the meantime, let's go to the box rec. Quickly go over this week's fights. We're going to be here all night the way we're going. But you get me on a roll and I can't stop. Let's go over this week's Nissan Arena show. This is the DNL event. So main event, you can see there is Justice Huni, Kiki Toa Luatali. I hope I've got that right. For all those regional belts there. Love Justice Huni. I think he takes care of Luatali pretty easy and goes on to the next step. Pretty good undercard there. Jerome Pampalone, really high on this guy. He can fight. This guy will test him, though, of course. Faris Chevalier, don't think it'll be the most exciting fight. Chevalier can fight, no doubt about that. But I think Pampalone will get the win there. Clay Waterman on undercard, I like him. Mitchell Whitelaw will give him all he can handle. He's a tough kid, is Whitelaw. Well, not a kid, he's a man, but I think he'll give him all he can handle. But Clay Waterman should win that one. Benjamin Bomber and Ankush Huda. I'm looking forward to seeing this one. Benjamin Bomber, he's talked it up a little bit. I like him as a good young prospect, 4-0. Ankush Huda, 4-1-1. Very, very tough fighter. If you can remember, he fought about 3 years ago on the Zarafa Horn undercard. He fought Andrew Hunt got a draw, and in my opinion, should have won that fight. Did get beat on the Haney Cambosis #1 card earlier in the year. But he's a tough guy, in very good hands with Steve Della and Luke Meldon up there. So he'll give Benjamin Bob very, very good tests to see where he's at. So that should be a good one. Billy Pokinghorn will be fighting Broby Martin. Billy Pokinghorn making his pro debut. Really good amateur, so you would expect him to win that one. Big things expected him, so that should be good. And this one actually should be a pretty good fight as well. This is Ben Horn, the brother of Jeff, of course, up against Campbell Somerville. Now, Ben Horn, you can see, is 4-5. Campbell Somerville is 2-0. Now, Campbell Somerville has got some big raps on him. I actually promoted his first fight a couple of years ago, nearly 3 years ago now. And that should be a really good fight. I don't think Ben Horn's record is really reflective of what he can do. He obviously gave Nikita Tszyu all he could handle in his last fight. So I think that should be a pretty good fight. Let's keep some comments going there while we're going. Shane, that dickhead Atlas, I can't even listen to his voice. Amen to that, Shane. I agree. Paul, glad you like the list there, mate. Great list. Can't disagree with any of it. Look, as I said, Paul, no dramas putting in Jaya Pataya or Lucas Brown. There's probably a few more you could throw in there as well. But, you know, it's pretty tough when you've got to squeeze about 13 or 14 fights into 10. So, yeah, that's just my list. Let's get back to this week's fights. So again, Justice Hooney, I think I said, yeah, I think he accounts for Letali pretty easily. I think he gets a nice hard-earned decision or even late-round stoppage. I'm picking in that one. The show in Sydney, yes. I'll quickly skim over this one. Not overly in this one, considering that I've just spent half the show about the Jake Paul one. But Sonny Bill Williams will be fighting Mark Hunt. Make of it what you will. Yeah. That's about all I'll say about that one. Is that on Stan? I think it might be. Let me know. If it is, you've got to pay for it. If you want to part with $60 to watch that, then good luck to you. I'm going to save my $60 for a rainy day, I think, for the next big show. Then on Saturday night, this is the Tasman Fighters card. So this will be on main event. Fox, I should say. I think the other one might be pay-per-view, is it? But this one's definitely Fox. Really like this card, actually, especially the Conor Wallace-Letty fight. It's a rematch. Letty gave Conor Wallace his only loss, so it should be a very good fight. I'm looking at Taylor Robinson, 6-1 against Shayaz Manoa. It's a world title eliminator, so hopefully Taylor will win that one. I think she goes very well, Taylor Robinson. I think she will fight for a world title in the next sort of 12 to 18 months. I think I had her ranked at number 6 in my pound for pound as well in the female, so she should be, again, one to watch. Dana Coolwell, good to see him back, 8-2. He's up against Kevin Asaniero. How do you pronounce that? Asaniero, 10-4-1. So good to see the starting to step him back up. 8-2, a little bit misleading with Dana. I think he's got all the talent in the world. Glad they've stepped him back just a tad. I think he'll get this win and get him back in the mix. Jake Wiley goes really good, 7-0. He's up against Patrick Clark, 2-4. Eric Sokolov, is he the Viking or the coach, whatever he is? He's coached by Luke and Steve Della up there as well. He's against Moen Saku Yor, so that should be a good one. And then the other one on the card is Brian McLaughlin, 3-1 against Marcus Nelson. So check out the schedule on that, the telecast details, excuse me. Pretty sure the Saturday night one is Fox and the Friday night one might be pay-per-view, I think. Or worst case, they might both be Fox. I'm not sure. But that is this week's Box Rec. So that is about it there, guys. If you've got any other comments you want to throw at me, put them in there and I'll answer any question. What have we got there? What do we got? Jay. You wouldn't know it's fight with Sonny Bill. I didn't know it was, Jay, until I looked at Box Rec before the show. And Mark Hunt, Stan Sport couldn't sell a diamond chain at 1080. He's got a few. He probably couldn't fit any more on there. Or Jake Paul, he couldn't probably sell as well. He's got a few around his neck. I think it's knuckle dusters around his neck, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't even know it was on, Jay. I'm with you. Didn't have a clue. Not that I cared. I wouldn't have paid for it anyway. Can't believe they've made this fight. But again, people pay for it. I'm just glad it's on the same weekend as some of these other big fights, which is why we're not hearing about this one. So hopefully the less we hear of it, the better. All such great fights. This is my list, of course. Can't argue. It's so hard to rank. They're all just tremendous performances. Yeah, I mean, geez, we've had some great performances over the years. And even just in the last few years. Horn, Pacquiao, Opetaya, Breedis, and Cambosis, and Lopez. There's 3 just in the last 5 years. Unbelievable. Just massive upsets. Massive heart shown by all the guys. The true Aussie way. And you go back to, obviously, Fenwick, Nelson, and Harding, and Andrews, and Norris, and Waters. Geez, I could just keep going on and on and on. So sometimes you watch those fights and you're definitely proud to be an Aussie, aren't you? So, but look, guys, I think that's about it. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. It's always good to have you on board. Really appreciate everyone watching. Make sure you watch Thursday night show. It's on live now with Tassie. I'm not sure. Nick Noonan's away. We might have Pete Maniatis on. We'll see how he goes. He had a show on the weekend. See if he can come on. If not, we might have someone else. Next week, I'm going to try and have a special guest. I'm not going to tell you who it is next, because since none of you guys want to come on, I'm going to actually get someone on to have a chat. Someone that's got a big fight on the horizon very soon. I'm going to try and get them on for a chat and answer any questions that you guys have for them. I won't say whether it's a he or she. So look out for next week's show. Be on at normal time, 7:45. But I'm going to try and, if we can, get some of these guys. And just I really like the idea of talking to all you guys and girls out there. But just occasionally, we might bring in someone that we might be able to have on the show that you guys can throw some questions at. So there it is. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Our dream fight this week is on at the moment is Ryan Garcia, Bobby Chacon. So check that one out. And again, look forward to seeing all of you on Thursday night live, probably from about 7:45 as well. And a lot of these points I'm going to bring up with the guys. Probably won't be at length, but still good to bring them up as talking points. So tune in, and we'll see you then. Thanks again for watching.